The teacher was already tired of sending messages to the student's mother. Angry, she yelled at him and threatened that if he did not come to school the next day accompanied by his mother, she would kick him out of lessons. Louis cried with resentment because his classmates bullied him because of his appearance. He came to school dirty and in torn pants. The boy was only 8 years old. He tried to wash his clothes, but there was no soap, washing powder, or water in the house. But how did the boy come to such a life, and where was his mother? His mother's name was Maria. When she was only 17 years old, she was orphaned and went to the city alone. There she lived as she had to, living off small part-time jobs, sleeping on the street and often being hungry. Until one day a woman noticed her on the side of the road. After talking to Maria and learning the sad story of the girl, she sympathized with her and promised to give her a job in her big house, while giving her a small room on the ground floor. Paula, that was the woman's name, was imbued with the girl's story, because she herself had once been poor, and she had to work hard to earn her fortune. When Maria started working in her house, the woman realized that she had made the right decision to hire her. The girl was very neat and an excellent cook. Only Paula and her husband lived in the house, because their sons were already big. The eldest lived with his family in another city, and the youngest studied abroad. For almost 2 years everything went great. Paula even offered to buy out her and her husband's small house in installments, in which they lived when they were young, and Maria gladly agreed. She moved into it a year and a half later. Payments for the house accounted for 80% of her salary, but she was incredibly glad because in the morning she went to work where she could eat for free and wash her clothes. In general, she had nowhere to spend the rest of her money, and with such a small income, the girl even managed to save. 2 years after Maria started working in the house, the landlady's son returned. Upon seeing the girl, the young man lost his head from her unusual beauty. Maria was a very beautiful girl, and this attracted Adrian's attention, but, unfortunately, his intentions were not at all noble. He only wanted to have fun. The guy was too arrogant to be seriously interested in the poor maid. Besides, he was already engaged to the daughter of an influential deputy. Adrian began courting Maria, who was 7 years younger than him, and they secretly went on dates. It seemed to the poor girl that her dream had come true. She fell madly in love and succumbed to the persistent courtship of the guy, agreeing to intimacy with him. After 3 months, Maria turned out to be pregnant, and at that time Adrian was quietly preparing for his wedding. The girl confessed to Paula what had happened between her and her son, and she promised to help her, but immediately made it clear that her son was marrying the deputy's daughter, not her. Maria was depressed and unhappy again. But what happened next shocked her even more. One night, a drunken Adrian broke into her house and demanded that she forget him and not interfere with her life. He told the girl to sell the house that his mother sold to her for a gift as soon as possible and go to another place. Otherwise, he would find people who would quickly take care of her and not let her live normally. "You've already made enough money from our family. Get back to your village," the enraged man said. Frightened, Maria fulfilled his demands. She sold the house and moved to another city. Paula was looking for the girl, but couldn't find her. At the 5th month of pregnancy, Maria opened a small stall, where she sold vegetables, and things went pretty well for her. The house she bought was small, but roomy enough for her and the child. She lived all alone. No one took her to the hospital. No one met her from there after a difficult birth. But still, the girl was happy because the child was born healthy and he had a roof over his head. The boy grew up while Maria was at work. He was taken care of by her friend and neighbor Carla, with whom Maria became friends when she moved to a new place. When the boy turned 1 year old, Maria began to take the child to work. She also arranged for Carla to go to her vegetable stall, and the boy, in fact, was almost always under the supervision of 2 mothers. A few months later, Carla's fiancé, who worked at a local bank, visited them. He advised Maria to open a savings account to secure her son's future, and it seemed like a great idea to the girl. Maria began to save money and give it to Carla's fiancé so that he could put it into a savings account. At the age of 6, baby Miguel started going to a private school, which was quite expensive, but Maria did everything possible to give her son the best education. Her business became very successful. She already had several outlets in the city, and Carla's fiancé began working for her as a manager. But despite Maria's best efforts, Miguel was not considered one of his own at school, and many parents were against the fact that the son of some merchant was studying with their children. But the teacher who taught at Miguel's was a very kind woman. After learning that Maria is a single mother who works without rest to give her son the best education, she decided to help her and help the boy get a discount on tuition as a very promising student. Maria began to save even more money for her son's future, but 6 months later she fell ill and could not even get out of bed. So her friend Carla had to take care of her and the child. The girl had to do both business and take Miguel to school. Doctors could not understand the cause of the woman's illness. She suffered from severe pain in her head, and her son cried watching his mother suffer. Carla's fiancé persuaded Maria to sign a power of attorney to manage accounts and business for himself under the pretext of making work easier, and not to bother Maria once again. A few months later, the poor woman died, although the cause of her illness was never determined. Carla told Miguel that his mother was asleep, and they would take her to a quiet place where she could rest forever. The next day, the woman was buried. The boy cried desperately, but his nanny and the groom said that he did not need to be sad because his mother was just sleeping. A week later, the boy woke up alone in the house. Carla was nowhere to be found. The girl disappeared, taking with her almost all the things from the house. The only room from which nothing was missing was the boy's bedroom. The boy also found a note in the kitchen. Dear Miguel, I had to go to another city for a month because of your mom's business. Don't worry, I'll be back. In any case, do not tell anyone that you live alone in the house. Otherwise you will be taken to an orphanage. After reading this note, Miguel cheered up, but his hopes began to fade when a month passed and no one came. There was no one else to take him to school, so he began to be constantly late, which made the teacher very angry. She vouched for him, but the boy did not meet her expectations. Soon she noticed that Miguel began to smell bad. The woman handed a note to his mother, in which she asked to wash her son. Miguel continued to study well, but he became a little distracted. One day, the teacher called him to the blackboard and scolded the boy in front of everyone, saying that he did not take care of himself and came to school like a fool. But she did not know that the lights and water were turned off in the house where Miguel lived, because he had nothing with which to pay for utilities. He collected water from the neighbors' gardens and searched for food in garbage cans. The teacher constantly wrote comments in the boy's diary for Maria, but she never replied, which angered the woman even more. When the time came for the school exhibition, the boy could not present his project because he did not have the money for the necessary materials. You've let us down again. I promise I won't leave it like this. I don't need such a dirty and lazy student at my school. She grabbed his hand and led him out of the classroom and also wrote in his notebook, Please, if you don't show up at school tomorrow, don't send your son here anymore. Then in what form Miguel comes to school is unacceptable. The boy was depressed, ran out of school in tears and rushed to the cemetery. He began to shout to his mother, Mom, get up already, you've had enough rest. You should go to the teacher and tell her that I came dirty because you weren't at home. The cemetery caretaker heard the boy's screams and cries and called the police. As soon as the teacher found out about the incident, she went to the police to the boy and fell on her knees in front of him, asking for his forgiveness. Poor Miguel stood in front of her and couldn't stop crying, because he already understood that his mother would never be returned. Miguel's story was sniffed out by journalists and a story was made. The police have launched an investigation. They accused Carla and her fiancé of stealing Maria's money and business. In addition, they found out that they poisoned the poor woman intentionally and her death was not an accident. For this, the criminal couple received a serious sentence. Miguel's fate was determined quickly. After everything that happened, Miguel's teacher decided to adopt the boy and give him all the love and care that he did not receive after his mother's death. But that's not all. After some time, the already elderly Paula saw a story about the story and a photo of the boy in the news. Her attention was attracted by how similar he was to her son as a child. She visited Miguel and she had no doubt that the boy was her grandson. However, Miguel continued to live with his foster mother, and his grandmother took care of his future so that he would not need anything. Miguel's father, Andrian, did not want to communicate with his son. However, Paula was not even upset by this fact. She had long been disappointed in her son, and wanted to do everything so that Miguel